running with the CD for the last 11 years. This one individual has been able to photo journey from life. This incredible cohort, so I decided I had to add a little bit. You're incredible. Navigating the voyage within, teacher perceptions on embedded social emotional learning in the English language arts classroom. Chair is not here. Dean Murata. Just saying. I'm a little bitter. He's good against scoldings. Committee members, the doctors Justin Dimmerbag, who is here, and Gary McBuck. So,
check. Hello everyone, my name is Matthew Tom, and thank you very much for coming to my dissertation conference presentation, Navigating the Voyage Within, Teacher Perceptions on Embedded Social-Emotional Learning in the English Language Arts Classroom. I'd first like to thank my dissertation committee chair, Dr. Murata, and my two committee members, Dr. Demirba and Dr. Baxa, for their support throughout this entire endeavor. My study is situated in middle school, which is a time of flux during which students experience an increase in academic rigor, requirements and responsibilities, and undergo changes socially, emotionally, and biologically too. I chose Leahi Middle School for this project, pseudonym, because it has a focus on strengthening the whole child in a nurturing environment, as opposed to some other schools that focus specifically on college and career readiness or preparing learners for the 21st century. I found it unique that this school in particular has a mission of providing students with a positive learning environment that meets the unique needs of adolescents and their supporters. And this leads me to my problem of practice. Previous research indicates that many teachers understand that SEL is important for students, but may not feel prepared enough to implement SEL teaching practices in the English language arts context. Teachers may feel that teaching SEL is an additional burden on top of their main curriculum, and this leads to my problem of practice, and the purpose of this study and my research questions. The purpose of this study was to describe Leahi Middle School's English language arts teachers' present levels of preparedness and currently implemented strategies in integrating social-emotional learning as an organically embedded component of ELA instruction. I investigated this by way of pursuing the following two research questions. 1, how do ELA teachers at Leahi Middle School perceive their role and comfort level in teaching social-emotional learning through their class? And 2, what specific supports do ELA teachers need to more effectively and comfortably integrate SEL in their daily classroom practices and ELA curriculum? As I dove into the literature about the interaction between ELA and SEL, I found the following theme, starting with that social-emotional learning is important, as there are many interconnected factors and spheres of support that are needed to help the academic and social-emotional growth of adolescents. 2, that storytelling and literature can be a space for empathy and healing, where students can explore complex issues through characters rather than their own direct experiences. It's much easier to discuss and analyze characters and the challenges those characters face, as opposed to directly and publicly confronting one's own experiences. 3, that ELA is an organic venue for SEL. ELA teachers have this unique access to students' stories, unlike teachers of other subject areas, as the underpinning of ELA is to qualify the world and to analyze it. And 4th, inconsistencies in SEL implementation. Pre-packaged SEL curriculums have had mixed success as they target skills out of context and require additional teacher preparation time, which can result in inconsistent implementation with fidelity. The review of the literature that was already out there served as a springboard for my own study, which was a qualitative research study using the constructivist paradigm, which asserts that the perception of reality is a human construction with no single definitive truth. All participants were English language arts teachers at Leahi Middle School, located in urban Honolulu. In the department, there were 6 female teachers and 2 male teachers, with ages ranging from mid-30s to mid-60s. All participants have had 10 or more years of teaching experience. This study consisted of 1 focus group with all participants, individual interviews, and an electronic survey. These 3 components helped triangulate the data to help provide a more well-rounded perspective. The interviews and focus group were semi-structured in nature and conducted virtually via WebEx. Like many others, they were audio recorded and transcribed using Otter AI. Transcripts were member-checked to allow for the accurate representation of each participant's experiences. Electronic surveys were administered asynchronously at the end of each interview with Likert scale and open-ended questions. I used the computer program Trent to assist in the transcription correction process, and I used Delve tool to help me organize my codes. In my first cycle coding, I used initial coding to generate these initial distinct categories, followed by in vivo coding and descriptive coding. In my second cycle coding, I used pattern coding to condense these first cycle codes into larger themes and observations. Through this inductive coding process that occurred as each subsequent interview was conducted, the initial codes then became the basis for 5 themes found in my study, starting off with theme number 1, that SEL is a naturally woven component of ELA instruction. So I asked participants to come up with their own definition of SEL, and they each had their individual definition, but they all revolved around this same topic, or this central objective of providing opportunities for students to express and process emotions in productive ways. The word opportunities was used 31 times throughout the focus groups and the interviews, and the phrase teachable moments was used 4 times, which indicates that teachers are constantly looking for moments where connections between curriculum and real life can be made. Teachers mentioned this focus on using precise language or upgrading basic language to pinpoint exactly what students want to convey, to use specific details to articulate a particular experience. And this idea of using precise language was mentioned by 4 out of the 8 participants. Subtheme number 1 is that the basis of SEL is connection, and connection leads to academic and emotional engagement. 100% of participants tried to make topics relatable and relevant to students, and they try to leverage students' background knowledge about the world and their experiences, which can also assist students who struggle with reading comprehension or reading. Teachers mentioned that novel studies, investigating novel studies, and those themes can reinforce life lessons. As students dive into these narratives, they can track how people change over time through character development. Through informative writing, teachers mentioned that students can investigate their strengths and skills and explore more about the world. They mentioned that emotional engagement plus personal investment then leads to academic engagement. But before any of this can happen, there needs to be a foundation of trust. Which leads me to theme number 2, that compassion, trust, and empathy within the ELA classroom are foundational. This is a prerequisite to encouraging student vulnerability and honesty, and 100% of participants mentioned the importance of building positive relationships with students. But not only positive, they needed to be patient, intentional, and authentic. A participant mentions that, I love to celebrate, but those moments where students have trusted me with some of the most incredible stories you wouldn't believe. Once you build that relationship, there's trust, there's a bond, and they feel comfortable sharing the most disagreeable, scary things. But it's important you have built that relationship. Teachers mentioned this difference between mutual and reciprocal, where reciprocal connotes this transactional relationship. I do something for you, you do something for me in return. Whereas mutual connotes a simultaneous relationship. So they mentioned this idea of mutual learning. When students are able to express themselves in more open ways, teachers learn about their students and how they perceive the world. Conversely, when teachers feel safe with their students, they can share more about their world as well. From an adolescent's point of view, teachers are often seen as the infallible authority figure. This inherent power dynamic may inhibit courageous risk-taking. And teachers mentioned that they try to be vulnerable by creating their own examples and by bringing their own life experiences into the classroom as well. 4 out of 8 teachers mentioned authenticity, as students can see straight through feigned genuineness, and a lack of authenticity breeds mistrust. Participants mentioned that they're honest and upfront when they don't know how to respond to a student, when situations are beyond their level of expertise, or regarding best steps for further action to help assist them. Which leads me to theme number 3, that a strong counseling team helps support teachers. All 8 participants know their responsibility as mandatory reporters, and all 8 participants feel supported by their counseling team. They're upfront with students about their due diligence, and they follow up and follow through with appropriate entities if students raise topics of concern, or if topics are beyond their level of expertise. Theme number 4, SEL instruction has become more intentional. Participants mentioned that Leahi Middle School as a whole was already moving toward making SEL more intentional before the COVID-19 pandemic, but the pandemic just accelerated the operationalization of all of this. Participants also noted that students are more comfortable discussing mental health. It's not this taboo topic that needs to be just kept hushed. Teachers are noticing a culture shift regarding the perception of mental health as well. When teachers embed SEL opportunities and the classroom climate is safe, students may share topics that teachers are unfamiliar with or unsure of how to navigate. Teachers want to help and continue these conversations in empathetic and sensitive ways. Which leads me to theme number 5, that ELA teachers expressed interest in more training on contemporary topics, for example, LGBTQIA+ for students and families. They wanted more resources on helping students navigate gender identity, pronoun usage, relationship choices, and they noticed that conversations and trainings have already happened at private schools, but not so much in public schools. And they noted that it doesn't seem like it's an immediate priority in public school right now. And so when I asked them, okay, well, what do you feel is the main priority of public school right now? They said that the foundation of this brave or safe space, it seems to be that priority, which is definitely an important first step. Participants mentioned that they would like to see more peer support groups to group students together who are going through similar struggles to help them empathize and validate each other's feelings with the goal of reducing this feeling of isolation, especially because peer influence is strong in middle school. Some challenges and pedagogical adjustments that teachers have had to make. Although teachers know that SEL is important, they do feel this pressure of ELA being a state-tested area, and not all aspects of ELA have very smooth ways of weaving in SEL. The limitations of this study were that any non-ELA teachers at the school did not participate, and no physical artifacts or direct observational data were collected. The findings of this study complement existing research that SEL naturally pairs with ELA. ELA curriculum can be a place for healing. Trusting teacher-student relationships are important. Third-party SEL can feel out of context, and classroom culture affects the success of SEL. The findings that complement existing research regarding the supports that are needed. Sexual orientation and gender identity or SOGI training have helped personnel of other schools navigate contemporary topics. School-based peer support systems have helped students process and validate their experiences to reduce this feeling of loneliness and isolation. And participants mentioned that they want to have professional conversations with their colleagues regarding ways to approach SEL from other disciplines. Some implications are that SEL can it can start as an engagement technique, but it soon becomes more than that if teachers have strong, trusting relationships with their students. I have not yet found studies that disprove or discourage this integrated approach to SEL and ELA, and teachers acknowledge the importance of SEL and simultaneously feel this pressure of ELA being a state-tested subject. Some recommendations for practice. Continue to embed SEL as much as possible in the ELA curriculum. And it's beneficial for all teachers to start exploring ways in which they can embed SEL into a variety of topics. Some recommendations for future research. It would be very interesting to see the students' perceptions of SEL in the ELA classroom, and what supports do students want in the 6th, 7th, and 8th grade. It'd be interesting to see this study replicated in other middle schools, because school culture, the ELA department, student demographics may influence the results. Perceptions of SEL in other subject areas, the benefits and barriers in doing so. What supports would those teachers need, the teachers who are not ELA teachers? And it would be interesting to explore how an interdisciplinary approach to SEL may affect overall student well-being. Thank you very much for your time.